I wasn't supposed to be home that early. The meeting downtown ended ahead of schedule. Some vendor forgot half their pitch deck, and we didn't see the point in dragging things out. So I hit the road and figured I'd surprise Kate. I even stopped at that Thai place she liked, the one tucked behind the gas station that barely anyone knew about. She always said their pad CEW was better than the fancy restaurants. The irony? I thought I was being a good husband. Thought I was doing something thoughtful. Bringing dinner home to the woman I'd built a life with. I'd imagined the whole thing in my head. She'd be working on her laptop, candles lit like she liked to do sometimes, a glass of red halfway full. She'd smile when she saw the takeout bag. Maybe we'd laugh, talk, pretend like the world outside didn't matter for a while. Instead, I walked into silence. Not just quiet, stillness. That eerie, heavy kind of quiet, like the air was holding its breath. The front door closed behind me, and I stood in the hallway for a second, listening. I didn't hear the usual sounds. The low hum of a podcast, the clink of dishes in the kitchen, even the occasional laugh she'd let out while watching one of those ridiculous dating shows. Just nothing. Then, faintly, I heard it. A voice. A man's voice. Low and muffled. It was coming from upstairs, our bedroom. I can't really explain what happened inside me right then. My heart didn't race. It slowed. It's like my body knew something before my brain could catch up. My hands tightened around the bag of takeout, and I climbed the stairs without a sound. Each step as deliberate as if I were trying not to spook an animal. The bedroom door wasn't fully shut, just cracked, about an inch. That 1 inch was enough. I saw Kate standing by the closet, holding something. She had her back to me, but even from behind, I could tell she was tense. Not in a startled way, just rigid, controlled. She was holding a blazer, draped across her forearms like she'd just pulled it off a hanger. It was dark navy with silver buttons, not one I recognized. It looked expensive, tailored. Definitely not mine. On the chair by her vanity there was a white shirt, pressed, perfectly folded, and too big to belong to me. I could see the stitching along the collar and sleeves. It was something from a brand I couldn't afford without thinking twice. The room smelled different, too. Strong cologne. Woodsy and sharp, like cedar and citrus. Not cheap, and definitely not the scent I wore or had ever worn. It lingered in the air in a way that told me it had been sprayed not long ago. I stayed in the doorway a moment longer, trying to process what I was seeing. Then, like a scene in a bad movie, Kate caught my reflection in the mirror. She didn't jump. She didn't gasp or drop the blazer like she'd been caught. She just turned around, slowly, calmly. "Oh," she said, blinking like I'd startled her only slightly. "You're home early." She set the blazer down on the bed like it was nothing. I didn't say anything at first. My eyes flicked between the shirt, the jacket, and her face. She wasn't panicked, just alert, watchful, like she was running through her mental files to find a script. "That's my brother's," she said, nodding at the blazer. "He stopped by real quick. Wasn't even here 5 minutes." I looked at her, trying to read her expression. I couldn't find anything concrete. Just calm, slightly impatient eyes, like she couldn't believe she had to explain herself at all. "He came by," I repeated. "Yeah, on his way to a meeting. I guess he spilled something on his shirt at the gym or whatever. You know how he is, last minute with everything. He changed here real quick and headed out. Didn't want to show up sweaty." My throat felt dry. I hadn't even realized I still had the bag of food in my hand until it started crinkling. "I didn't know he was in town," I said. She gave a tight smile. "It was kind of unplanned, just passing through. Honestly, I barely had time to talk to him before he ran out again." I nodded slowly, but my mind was spinning. Something didn't add up. The shirt on the chair, it had just been ironed. No creases, no wrinkles, like it had been prepped for someone. And her brother? I knew for a fact he was allergic to most colognes. He used those unscented grooming products, some organic brand from Vermont or something. I remember because we once bought him a gift set and he had to give it away. She must have seen the doubt on my face, because her tone shifted, lightened, but with a slight edge. "Adam," she said gently, stepping toward me. You look exhausted. Long day? I didn't answer. I just kept looking at the shirt. Maybe you're just tired, she added, brushing her hair behind her ear. Your brain's running overtime. Honestly, there's nothing going on. You're probably just seeing things that aren't really there. That line hung in the air for a second too long. Something about the way she said it, it was rehearsed. Not obvious, but a little too smooth, like she was trying to talk me out of what I was seeing before I could fully form the thought myself. I set the bag down on the dresser. I brought dinner, I said. She smiled, relieved, and reached for the bag like we could just move past it. But I didn't move. My eyes stayed on the chair. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She didn't check it. I could have asked more questions. Could have pushed. But I didn't. Not yet. I just stood there, watching the moment float past us, both of us pretending we were on the same page. Because here's the thing, Kate was never a good liar. But she was an excellent deflector. She didn't deny things outright. She didn't argue. She redirected. She gave just enough truth to wrap the lie in something I wouldn't want to unravel. And back then, I wanted to believe her. I really wanted to believe her. That night, we ate in front of the TV. She talked about her day like nothing had happened. Work stuff. A client who messed up a file. A new intern who didn't understand basic Excel formulas. All the usual filler. But the smell of that cologne, it lingered. Even after we opened the windows. Even after she changed her clothes. I could still smell it on the sheets when I crawled into bed hours later. And in the back of my mind, something settled in like a quiet whisper. This isn't nothing. It was a gut feeling, one I'd never had with her before. But it was there now, refusing to be shaken. She said I was just tired. That I was imagining things. Maybe she was right. But maybe, just maybe, I had finally started waking up. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Not because I was rested, quite the opposite. I'd spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, listening to the occasional rustle of sheets beside me. Kate slept like a stone, peaceful, unbothered. That should have been a comfort. But it wasn't. It was like watching someone dream in a house that wasn't theirs. She didn't mention anything strange over breakfast. Just poured coffee, made toast, and scrolled through her phone like nothing happened. I pretended to do the same, acting like a man who wasn't still thinking about that navy blazer or the shirt on the chair or the scent that didn't belong in our home. We made small talk, or rather, she talked. I just nodded at the right moments. But something had cracked open quietly. Part of my brain I didn't know I'd sealed shut. I started remembering things. Not just the night before, but little things. Things I hadn't paid attention to in the moment, or things I'd shrugged off at the time because I trusted her. Because trusting her felt easier than the alternative. She had started working late more often over the past few months. It had seemed reasonable. She was managing new accounts, new responsibilities, her firm had been merging with another, and apparently that meant long hours and surprise deadlines. First, I believed it. Why wouldn't I? She'd always been hardworking. She'd always had pride in what she did. But now I thought about how vague she'd become. Some nights she'd come home and barely mention work. Other nights she'd ramble, almost as if she were oversharing on purpose. Name-dropping colleagues I'd never heard of, going on and on about office drama that felt strangely curated. It was like she was trying to build a believable stage set for me, full of names and faces I couldn't cross-check. Then there was the phone. That change was subtle and slow, but it happened. There was a time when her phone would sit on the kitchen counter or the armrest or the bathroom sink, forgotten for hours. Now, it never left her hand. Or if it did, the screen was flipped down. Always. Like it had suddenly become a private diary instead of a device we both used to order groceries and send memes. I joked about it once. Something dumb, like, "Wow, did your phone grow legs? I haven't seen it let go of you all day." She smiled. Not amused. Just polite. Then she changed the subject. Another time, I walked into the bedroom while she was texting. She flinched. Not a full-body jolt, just a quick shift like a kid hiding a bad grade. She locked the screen and said she was talking to her friend Mia. Later that week, I saw Mia at the grocery store and casually mentioned the conversation. She looked confused. Said she hadn't talked to Kate in a while. Claimed work had been too hectic to catch up. Back then, I chalked it up to a miscommunication. Now, it felt like a brick being laid on top of other bricks. All of them building a wall I hadn't realized was separating me from the truth. There was also her style. Kate had always been fashionable, effortless, really. But sometime in the early fall, her wardrobe shifted. At first it was subtle. Tighter jeans, low-cut blouses that showed off more than usual, lipstick shades that she used to say were too bold for daytime. At first, I figured she was just evolving her look. Everyone does. But the change wasn't just about appearance, it was about intention. She started getting ready for work like she was going somewhere else entirely. Heels instead of flats. Lingerie that no one was supposed to see. Perfume that lingered hours after she left the house. When I complimented her, told her she looked incredible, she smiled like I'd caught her off guard, like I wasn't the one she had dressed for. Then came the girls' nights. Those were rare before, but lately, they'd become more frequent. Usually on a Friday. She'd text midday saying she was going out after work and might sleep at a friend's place. "We're having wine and venting. Don't wait up," she'd write. I didn't want to be the husband who questions everything. I wanted to trust her, so I told her to have fun. But one night, curiosity got the better of me. I checked her Instagram stories while she was out. Nothing alarming at first. Selfies with her friends. A boomerang of clinking wine glasses. But something felt off. One of the photos showed the skyline, a high-rise view I recognized. It wasn't her friend's apartment. It was downtown. Expensive condos. Way too upscale for a casual girls' night. When I asked her the next day how it went, she said it was low-key. That they watched bad movies and passed out early. No mention of the view. Or the location. Just vague laughter and a sleepy kiss on my cheek. Back then, I let it go. I told myself maybe one of the friends had moved. Maybe they went out before heading back. Maybe I was overthinking it. But now, with the memory of that blazer fresh in my mind, the puzzle pieces started snapping together. Fast and painfully. Another thing came back to me, the passwords. Kate had always been the more organized one. She set up our Netflix, Spotify, even our shared calendar. I never cared to remember the logins. I'd just ask, and she'd type them in. But a few months ago, she changed the password on her phone. She didn't mention it. I only found out when we were in the car and she asked me to change the music. I tried to unlock it, and the code didn't work. "Oh," she said, laughing awkwardly. "Sorry, I switched it. I was being paranoid. Some intern at work almost stole someone's info the other day. Just being cautious." I asked what the new code was. She hesitated for a beat. Just a second. Then she told me. But I noticed she changed it again a week later. And this time, she never told me. Little things. All of them small. But stacked together, they created a version of reality I couldn't ignore anymore. Like how she'd suddenly lock the bathroom door while brushing her teeth. Or how she started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. Or how she took up jogging on Sunday mornings but never came back sweaty. I remember one Sunday in particular, I was up earlier than usual. She was already dressed, keys in hand, saying she was going for a long one since the weather was nice. I asked if I could join. Her reaction was immediate. Too immediate. "Oh, no, I need to clear my head. Solo time." She smiled, kissed my cheek, and left before I could say anything else. She came back 90 minutes later. Perfect makeup. No sweat. Her ponytail didn't even look like it had bounced. That memory hit differently now. I sat on the edge of our bed that morning, after she left for work, and felt like I was looking at a photo that had been doctored. Slightly altered, just enough to trick you at first glance. But when you know what to look for, you can't unsee the edits. Kate was living another life. Not out in the open, but not fully hidden either. It was all there, buried in the margins of our day-to-day routines. I just hadn't been willing to read between the lines. Until now. I got up, went to the closet and opened her side. Looked at her shoes, her bags, her blazers. None of them matched the one she had yesterday. The navy one with the silver buttons? Nowhere to be found. Not in the laundry, not hanging up. Not even in the hall closet where we kept coats. If it really had been her brother's, wouldn't she have hung it near the door for him to grab next time? And speaking of him, I checked his Instagram. He'd posted a story the day before. From another city. At a concert with friends. He wasn't even in the state. That's when it clicked. The lie hadn't just been flimsy. It had been lazy. Because she thought I wouldn't check. Because she thought I wouldn't question her. Because she thought she still had me. The trusting husband who never snooped, never doubted, never said no. But something had changed in me. Quietly. Permanently. I didn't confront her that morning. I didn't rage. I didn't slam drawers or tear through messages or accuse her of anything. That wasn't my style, and it wouldn't have mattered anyway. She was too careful now. Too good at controlling the narrative. Instead, I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop and made a list. Not of suspicions. Of patterns. Times. Dates. Events. Excuses. Things she said. Things she didn't. I wrote it all out, line by line, like an investigator would. Detached. Logical. Focused. Because I knew what was coming. I didn't know when, but I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't stress. It wasn't just me overthinking. It was something real. And whatever it was bigger than I wanted to believe. It happened on a Tuesday. That detail stuck with me for some reason. Maybe because it was such an ordinary day. Tuesdays are the kind of days you don't remember. No real expectations, no reason to expect a storm. I'd gone through work like usual, mostly in silence, pretending I was reading emails when I was really just staring at the same 3 lines of text for 20 minutes. My mind was elsewhere. Lately, it always was. Kate had left early that morning. She didn't wake me. I just rolled over and found the bed already cold on her side. No note. No text. Nothing unusual, at least not anymore. By the time I got home, the house was empty. She had texted earlier, saying she was staying late at work. Client meeting ran long, she wrote. Might just grab something to eat with the team. I read it twice, 3 times, trying to decide if it was true. Every word she sent now came with a question mark attached. That night, I sat on the couch, just staring at her tablet. She rarely used it. That was the thing. She preferred her phone for everything. Texts, photos, even reading the news. The tablet was almost always buried under magazines or tossed onto the side table next to her chair. She never carried it around, never took it out with her. And maybe that's why she forgot to log out. I didn't touch it at first. I just stared at it like it was some cursed object. I felt guilty even thinking about going through it. Like I was betraying her, even after all the red flags. But then I remembered the smell of the cologne, the blazer, the photos, the shift in how she looked at me, like I'd become background noise. So I picked it up. It was unlocked. Her last open tab was Pinterest, wedding decor, ironically. From years ago, maybe, or something she'd clicked on accidentally. But I swiped out of it and went to the Files app, not really expecting much. That was when I saw the album. It wasn't labeled anything obvious. No heart emojis or his name. Just a plain, boring title, Documents. Inside were photos. Dozens. I opened the first one and forgot how to breathe. It was her, Kate, standing by a window. Not our window. A hotel window. She was wearing a white shirt. The shirt. The same one I'd seen on the chair in our bedroom the day I came home early. But it wasn't just that. Her body was turned toward the glass. Her face reflected faintly in it. But there was someone behind her. A man. I couldn't see his face clearly, just his hand on her waist, pulling her back toward him. My stomach twisted. I wanted to believe it was an old picture, a memory, but it couldn't have been. The shirt was new. The photo was taken at night, and I remembered that window, the skyline outside. It matched the exact angle from the high-rise view I saw in her friend's girls' night post. I swiped to the next. They were on a balcony now. She was laughing. The kind of laugh I hadn't seen from her in a long time. She looked alive, free, like someone on vacation, like someone without a husband at home. The man was there again, better angle this time. Tall, dark hair, his hands on her hips. They were leaning in toward each other, heads almost touching. He was whispering something in her ear, and she was smiling like a teenager with a crush. My heart was racing. I could hear it in my ears, feel it in my chest. My fingers were ice cold, but I couldn't stop scrolling. One video. I almost didn't open it, but I did. It was shaky, like it had been recorded in secret. Her voice came through first. "Be careful," she whispered. "He's still checking everything at home." My name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't need to be. That line hit me like a knife to the ribs. Not because it confirmed what I feared, but because of the way she said it. Not guilty, not fearful, just aware. Like I was a footnote in a story that didn't belong to me anymore. I paused the video, sat back. The room spun. I don't know how long I sat there with the tablet in my lap. 10 minutes? An hour? The house was so quiet. It was like it had absorbed the weight of the truth with me. I remember hearing the fridge click and jump slightly as it started a cooling cycle. Even that sound startled me. I stood up. My legs were numb. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate, repeated, carefully hidden, or maybe not so carefully. Maybe she'd just known I wasn't looking. This was a life she was living next to mine. Not behind my back, but right beside me, just out of reach. A second reality she'd built without asking, without telling, without even hesitating. For a second, I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat back down. And then I did something that surprises even me now. I watched the video again. Not because I wanted to hurt myself, but because I needed to be sure. I needed to see her face, hear her tone, understand how deep this went. And there it was again. He's still checking everything at home. Not "I feel bad." Not "I have to stop." Just an observation. Like she was managing a schedule. I exited the video and looked through the rest of the folder. Receipts. Bookings. *TS of conversations. One of them showed a reservation for a hotel I recognized. One she'd claimed was used for a client offsite. I remembered asking if it had gone well. She said it was boring. Just long meetings and stale coffee. Apparently, it had been a little more exciting than that. One photo, this one was the worst, showed her in front of a mirror. She was wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. Black, lacy, expensive. She had taken the picture herself, one hand on her hip. Her expression wasn't shy. It wasn't flirty. It was confident. Like she knew she looked good and didn't need anyone's approval. And at the bottom of the screen, barely visible, was a message bubble. "Can't wait to see you again. This weekend feels too far away." There was no name, just an initial. R. I didn't know who R was. I didn't care. It wasn't about him. It never had been. It was about her. The choices she made. The effort she put into hiding things from me. The fact that she hadn't just drifted. She had sprinted, smiling, into someone else's arms while still kissing me goodbye in the mornings. I left the tablet exactly where I found it. Not out of mercy, out of strategy. She didn't know I knew. And for now, I needed it to stay that way. The knowledge gave me clarity, not peace, but something close. Like the flick of a switch in a dark room. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't second-guessing myself or rewriting memories to make them easier to swallow. I knew. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. She texted me around 10 p.m. A simple "love you" with a heart emoji. I stared at it for a while before turning the screen off. I wasn't going to reply. I lay down on the couch, arms crossed over my chest. The silence of the living room pressing down on me like a weighted blanket. The house felt different now. Smaller somehow. Like it knew. Like the walls themselves had absorbed the lie and were waiting for it to burst. In my mind, I kept replaying every moment. Every deflection. Every red flag I'd ignored. I thought about the way she used to look at me. The way we used to be. Then I thought about the shirt. The cologne. The video. And that phrase, again and again, "He's still checking everything at home." She thought she was being careful. Clever. In control. But she hadn't noticed the most dangerous change of all. Me. I didn't say anything. Not the next day. Not the day after that. In fact, I didn't even change my routine. I got up at the usual time, made coffee like I always did, showered, dressed, left for work. From the outside, I was the same man I'd always been. To Kate, nothing had changed, but everything had. I wasn't doing it to punish her. This wasn't some kind of revenge fantasy or childish silent treatment. It wasn't about making her squirm. Honestly, I wasn't sure she'd even notice right away. The silence was for me. It gave me space, control, a sense of grounding in a situation where everything else felt like quicksand. After weeks, months, of second-guessing myself, wondering if I was paranoid or overly sensitive or insecure, I finally knew the truth. And now that I didn't need to shout it. I didn't need a confession. I just needed a plan. The silence was the start of it. On the surface, I kept things normal. I still asked her about her day, but only when she started the conversation first. I'd nod when she talked, say "ma'am" at the right times, but I didn't offer anything real of my own. I didn't vent about work. I didn't make jokes. I didn't tease her like I used to. I became a version of myself that wasn't angry or cold, just absent, detached, emotionally mute. She noticed within 3 days. It started with little questions. "Everything okay? Are you tired? Rough week?" I'd say, "Yeah, just busy," and leave it at that. Then came the shift in her tone. Lighter, more cautious. She started bringing me coffee without asking. She left post-its on the bathroom mirror again, like she used to when we first moved in together. Notes like "Hope today's better than yesterday heartsuit." She even brought up planning a weekend getaway, something we hadn't talked about in over a year. I told her I'd think about it, and I did, but not in the way she hoped. Every time she tried to bring us back to normal, it only highlighted how fake everything had become. Her sudden warmth wasn't out of love. It was out of fear. She could feel something slipping, but she didn't know what. She didn't know I knew. And the longer I stayed quiet, the more power shifted into my hands. She had no idea I was documenting everything. Every night, after she fell asleep, I got to work. I combed through her tablet again. Found more photos, more messages. *TS she'd saved from an alternate messaging app. They weren't just flirty, they were coordinated. Hotel bookings, dinner plans, conversations with phrases like, "I wish I could just leave and be with you full time." I started downloading everything. I organized the evidence by category: dates, times, hotel receipts, travel confirmations, photos, videos, messages. Anything that tied her to this other man, whoever R was, went into a folder. I backed it up twice, once on an encrypted USB drive, and once on a cloud storage account she didn't know existed. I printed everything, not to confront her with, not yet, but I needed something tangible, something real, because the part of me that had loved her still clung to a thread of denial. And when the waves of doubt hit, and they did hit, I needed the proof to remind me I wasn't imagining it. She was cheating, full stop, and she was good at it. She had a second email address I didn't know about, linked to hotel rewards, car services, and even a private photo album. That one hurt the most. It wasn't just evidence of an affair, it was evidence of effort. She had gone out of her way to create a digital world that existed without me. And she had filled it with her laughter, her body, her secrets. With him. I didn't know how long it had been going on, but judging by the dates on some of the earliest messages, it had been close to 7 months. 7 months of pretending. 7 months of lying to my face while kissing me goodnight. 7 months of twisting herself into 2 versions. The woman she wanted to be, and the woman she wanted me to see. I started paying closer attention to her movements. What she said. What she didn't say. Every time she looked at her phone and smiled faintly. Every time she said she was working late. Every time she told me she'd already eaten when she came home. Full makeup still intact, hair freshly done. Once, I asked her what she had for dinner. She said sushi. I checked her trash the next morning. No containers. She was slipping. Not because she was getting careless, but because she was getting comfortable. She thought I was still in the dark. And honestly, that worked in my favor. The less I said, the more she tried to fill the silence. She started cooking again. Wearing that hoodie I gave her 2 years ago. The one she used to say made her feel too frumpy. She left the door open when she showered, probably to show she had nothing to hide. She played love songs in the kitchen while making breakfast. But none of it reached me, because now I saw everything for what it was. Performance, not repentance. Guilt never showed up in her words. Only anxiety. She wasn't trying to fix what she broke. She was trying to make sure I didn't realize it was broken in the first place. I kept gathering. I went through her email drafts, her cloud backups, her private notes app. She had journal entries, emotional ones where she talked about feeling torn and confused. She never mentioned my name, not once. Just him and home, as if I was just a place she lived in, not a person she once promised forever to. In one entry, she wrote, "Sometimes I wish I could just freeze time and live in both worlds. One gives me comfort, the other gives me color. Is that selfish? Probably, but I'm so tired of choosing." That sentence sat with me for days. Comfort. That was me. I was the safety net, the mortgage, the groceries, the steady rhythm of someone who remembered her coffee order and the name of her childhood dog. Color. That was him. Whoever he was. The novelty, the excitement, the thing she chased when life got too boring, when I became wallpaper in our shared story. She didn't know I was changing. She didn't see the shift in my eyes when she spoke to me. She didn't notice that I no longer asked follow-up questions, no longer commented on her stories, no longer made plans that involved the two of us. Because I wasn't building a future anymore. I was building an exit. I began meeting with a lawyer during my lunch breaks. Quietly, thoroughly. I explained everything. I brought a copy of the folder. He looked through it like a doctor reading x-rays. "You've got everything you need," he said, sliding the evidence back across the table. "The court will see it. If you want out, you'll walk out clean." That phrase, "walk out clean," echoed in my head for the rest of the week. It wasn't just about leaving. It was about leaving on my terms. No drama. No screaming match. No begging for truth that had already been exposed. I started hiding little things. My spare keys. My birth certificate. A few sentimental keepsakes. She didn't notice. Or if she did, she chalked it up to my absent-mindedness. After all, I was acting quiet lately. Distant. To her, I was probably depressed. In a way, I was, but not in the way she thought. I wasn't breaking down. I was pulling back. Withdrawing all the parts of myself she used to have access to. And in that silence, I found something strange. Peace. Not joy. Not yet. But a quiet certainty that I didn't have to stay in this version of my life. I didn't have to keep being the man she lied to, the man who cleaned the gutters and fixed the Wi-Fi and picked up takeout while she texted someone else under the table. The silence made it clear. I wasn't waiting for her to confess. I was watching her reveal herself, one careful lie at a time. And soon I'd have everything I needed. Not for revenge, but for release. Some things are louder than shouting. I learned that the night I left the folder on her driver's seat. It had been sitting on my desk for days, the black folder with all the evidence. Not thick, not flashy. Just sleek, matte, and understated. It looked like it might hold a contract or a resume, maybe tax documents. But inside it was the slow disintegration of our marriage, printed and hole-punched, separated by labeled tabs. Photos, emails, hotel receipts, travel confirmations, text screensh *TS, copies of her documents folder from the tablet, journal entries, the video clip, transcribed word for word. I'd even included her quote. "He's still checking everything at home." The final tab was labeled simply, "Not a mistake," because it wasn't. This wasn't something she stumbled into. It wasn't some moment of weakness or an emotional slip-up. It was a lifestyle, a second identity, something she chose over and over again, while lying to my face with practiced ease. I didn't leave a note inside the folder. No accusations. No angry monologue. Just the evidence. Just the truth. That was all it needed. That afternoon, I timed it carefully. She always left her car unlocked when she ran into the boutique down the street. I knew because I used to remind her to lock it, and she used to roll her eyes and say, It's a safe neighborhood, Adam. It was. But I wasn't there to steal. I waited until she was inside, walked across the street, slipped the folder onto the passenger seat, closed the door quietly, walked away. That night, I came home early for the first time in weeks. The house was still. Kate's car was in the driveway. The lights in the kitchen were on, but the curtains were drawn. All of them. She never did that. She liked light, windows open, natural sunlight. But tonight, everything was closed off. I stepped inside. She was standing in the kitchen when I walked in, folder in her hands, arms stiff, shoulders tight. She wasn't wearing makeup. Not a trace. Her face was pale. Her hair was tied back, like she hadn't touched it all day. The old hoodie, the one I'd given her a year ago, hung off her like it didn't belong anymore. She didn't speak at first, just looked at me, like she didn't know where to start. And maybe she didn't. There wasn't a script for this. Finally, she said my name. Adam. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I stayed silent. I don't know what to say, she added, eyes wide, trembling. I didn't know you knew. I mean, I didn't think. She stopped herself, looking down at the folder. I guess you knew everything. I didn't nod. I didn't move. She opened the folder, flipping through the tabs like it was the first time. You printed everything, she said quietly, almost to herself. You went through all of it. Still, I said nothing. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't even know how to begin to explain. You don't need to, I said finally. She looked up. I've read it all, I continued. I've heard it all. In your messages. In your voice. You already explained it, just not to me. She flinched. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said quickly, desperate now. I swear, Adam, it wasn't about you. It was about me. I was confused. I felt like I was disappearing. Like I didn't know who I was anymore. I said nothing. I wasn't trying to replace you, she went on. I needed something. Something that made me feel like myself again. That was the moment I realized. She still didn't get it. You needed something? I repeated, my voice flat. So you made a new life. With another man. And you kept this one going too. You didn't leave. You didn't talk to me. You didn't ask for help. You just split yourself in half and kept me in the dark. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she whispered. It wasn't an accident, Kate, I said. You booked hotels. You took photos. You saved messages. You wrote journal entries about how you wished you could live in two worlds. That's not an accident. That's a decision. Her hands were shaking now. I didn't know how to stop, she said. You didn't want to. She froze. If you had wanted to stop, you would have, I continued. But you liked it. The escape. The attention. The excitement. You didn't want to give it up. You just didn't want to get caught. Tears spilled from her eyes. She reached for me, but I stepped back. Please, she said, voice breaking. Just listen. I can fix this. I can end it. I'll go to therapy. We can go together. I'll tell him it's over. You can have access to everything. My phone, my accounts, whatever you want. You already gave him access to everything, I said. I'm not interested in leftovers. The silence after that was brutal. She stood in front of me like someone stripped bare. No defenses, no masks. Just the consequences of her own choices catching up to her in real time. I don't care who he is, I said after a pause. I don't want to know his name. I'm not here to compete. This isn't a contest. Her voice cracked. So what now? Are you leaving? I didn't answer. Instead, I picked up a pillow from the couch, grabbed the spare blanket, walked past her and headed down the hall to the guest room. She didn't follow. That night, I lay on the smaller bed in the colder room and stared at the ceiling. The house was dead quiet, but I knew she was awake. I could feel it, the tension humming through the walls. She wasn't used to silence. She was used to me reacting, problem solving, playing the calm one, the reasonable one, the forgiving one. But this time I had nothing to say. The next morning, I woke up before dawn, showered, got dressed, When I came into the kitchen, she was there again. Same hoodie, same expression. But now the table was set. Toast, eggs, coffee, peanut butter, the one I liked, lightly toasted just how I preferred it. She was trying to reset the clock, to rewind to a version of our life that didn't exist anymore. I sat down, ate in silence. She didn't eat, just sat across from me, waiting, watching. But I didn't give her what she was hoping for. I didn't say thank you. I didn't smile. I didn't ask how she slept. I finished eating, stood up, took my plate to the sink. Then I left for work. That night, when I came home, the house looked the same. But something was different. She had cleaned the floors, the counters, the dishes. She had done laundry, folded my clothes, lit a candle in the living room. She was trying to restore normal, clinging to it like a life raft. But it was gone. Normal was gone. Later, while she was taking a bath, I sat down at the dining table with a pen and a manila envelope. I pulled out a document I'd had notarized that afternoon. It was a transfer of ownership, my share of the apartment signed over to her, unconditionally. No settlement, no requests, just freedom. She didn't know yet, but soon she would. I placed it in the center of the dining table. Not on her pillow, not in her car, just out in the open. There, but not handed to her. Not gifted, not even explained. The message was in the silence. This isn't revenge. This is release. And in that moment, I knew. She could stay in this house, surrounded by memories she destroyed, furniture we picked out together, walls we painted on Sundays. She could keep the couch, the bed, the dinnerware, the matching lamps, the wedding china. All of it. But she couldn't keep me. I was already gone. The next morning, she tried again. Breakfast on the table, that old hoodie still clinging to some distant memory of who we were. She spoke softly, nervously, like every word might tip the balance. I didn't play along. I ate in silence, stood up, and kissed her forehead like a stranger passing by. Then, while she went for her usual walk, I packed. Just the essentials, no drama. I left the apartment keys and the signed ownership transfer on the counter. She could keep the place. I didn't want anything from it. My last act was a letter, handwritten, short, final. No accusations. Just the truth. Everything here is yours now, except me. Then I walked out the door and didn't look back. Weeks passed. I stayed with an old friend across town. Someone who remembered who I was before everything twisted. I rebuilt slowly, quietly. Then, one night at a charity event, I saw her across the room. Kate, dressed up but hollow. She froze when she saw me. Standing beside someone else, smiling, alive. I didn't approach. I didn't need to. She understood. It hadn't been a fight or a door slammed shut that ended us. It was the silence. The kind that speaks louder than betrayal. I didn't return for her. I returned to myself.